If you are tired of agencies treating you like sheep, then I have the solution for you. In this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how we built a $10 million home services business in just 120 days, and we brought all the marketing in-house so they will never have to rely on another agency ever again, treating them like a sheep. If you've been in business for any amount of time, you've probably been pitched by someone who says, I can get you appointments or I can get you leads. The issue with that is they want to get you on board. They are trying to sell and market their services to you. So their vested interest is telling you, we can get you a lower cost per lead than what you're currently paying. But what's not as sexy and is also much harder to measure, especially if you have an outsourced marketing team instead of an inside marketing team, is cost per lead versus customer acquisition costs. The difference between an agency versus you, when you should be able to bring it in-house instead of having someone else do it, is they will sell you on cost per lead and not your customer acquisition costs. Why? Because they can only control up to the lead, or even, sometimes the lead, sometimes the appointment, just depends on where you're at. If you have someone outside, there is a disconnect between the agency and between where you bring it in-house. Most of these metrics have an effect on each other. So if you say, I want to bring down my cost per sale, you might have to do some different marketing that the agency might not be able to do. The agency is trying to reduce their expenses as much as possible. So those are some flaws with the original agency model. And then they'll sell you on, hey, I can get you really cheap leads, but then it totally messes up your sales process. And now you have to be like really a good closer. You shouldn't do outsource, or you shouldn't rely on outsource forever. And I guess for context, when we build in-house marketing teams, our businesses will end up growing by about 13% in the first quarter, just because they're able to look at the lead, the appointment, and the sale, instead of just the leads or just the appointments. So they're actually able to look at all three of them. And so also, like when you go through this, an agency lifespan is like 3 to 6 months. Most people, all they care is just this cycle of, I want to sell you into something. I will try to get your business. And then as soon as you're in, I'm going to send you, and you're getting good results for a month or so, I'm going to send you off to a junior account rep. And then all of a sudden your results are going to go down. And so agencies always have a lifespan. And so that's why it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. You can use an agency temporarily and then bring in-house when you figure out what they do that's successful for your business. If you've been marketing for any amount of time, you'll also know not all leads are created equally. A lead from inbound is different than a lead from outbound. They're completely different things. And so if you can figure out and get really clear on the lead source and also the lead process based on the source, because then you know what they're exposed to before they actually talk to your sales reps, because everyone's exposed to information at this point. Another thing that agencies do is they're very risky. Why does your risk go up when you work with an agency? If you have a large majority of your business coming in from an agency and they know that, what they're gonna do is saying, well, we're making this guy all this money. We're either gonna leave because he's making all this money, we're not making this money. They're gonna raise your prices, so now they're in control of your business, which you really, really don't wanna do, because that really makes your business very risky. So someone else is in control of your marketing, and marketing is your baby making, and you would never outsource your baby making. So why would you outsource your lead generation? Don't be doing that. Doesn't make any sense. And so they don't actually care, because they have other clients. They're just gonna move on, they're gonna disappear, the price could change, the business, nothing makes sense for an agency. And Charlie Munger said, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcomes. So the whole thing behind that is they're not incentivized properly to actually get results. And even if you do find one that is incentivized to get results, they have other clients. So they're not gonna care as much about your business as you will, or your employees. Their incentives are not aligned at all. It doesn't make any sense, because they're optimizing for how can they do things the most efficiently for all their clients together, not necessarily what's optimized for the health of the business. And if you bring it in-house, you can try out multiple different channels and optimize multiple different channels. Whereas if you have one agency, they usually are really good at just one channel instead of figuring out multiple channels. The best way is to get multiple channels and to get multiple lead sources, so that you have multiple ways to get leads, because all of a sudden one day you could just wake up and your ad account's shut down, and then what? Well, that's an issue. So definitely it reduces risk in all kinds of ways for your business. And then you can more effectively market your own business. Furthermore, if you bring it in-house, you're able to optimize multiple channels, which is what we ended up doing. We went from testing one channel to testing 5 different channels throughout their marketing. So it made it less risky. We did inbound and outbound leads. And it wasn't just one agency, it was in-house and it was multiple channels. So the risk factor went way down when we diversified, because agencies, they'll usually just get really good at one thing and that's it. They won't learn something else because it's not efficient for them to learn multiple things. Unless you're paying a lot of money, in which case if you're paying a lot of money, then you can probably bring it in-house and build in, then you can grow easier, because then you have more attention and focus on your account, which is important. Which leads us to point number 2, scaling lead generation. So there you go. Wait, S-C-A-L-I-N-G. Boop. Scaling up. That's an I. Okay, so scaling up lead gen. When we started with them, they were only testing this. They were testing this many ads per month, 2. So when we started working with them, we're like, okay, that's not enough, which as you can imagine didn't do so well. So instead we went from 2 to now we started testing 120. That's a smiley face. So yeah, we went from just testing 2 things a month to 120 ad tests per month on different platforms with multiple different methods, so both inbound and outbound. So by the way, this was within 2 weeks, we started doing 120 tests per month. So we started with them, they were doing 2. 2 weeks later, they were doing 120. So we not only did we do it fast, we knew the constraint, we looked at it and said, this is the one thing that's actually blocked off in the business that is not scaling. The rest of it can scale. Let's work on, because the sales team calendar were virtually empty. We could totally crush this and add in way more tests. So we just went all in on test. I mean, that's actually more, I think it's 100, so yeah, it's about 75 times the amount of testing that we did in just 2 weeks of advertising. So we went from one platform risk, so now it's less risky, which is a good thing. You want less risk because you have multiple platforms, and so even if your ad account gets shut down on one, you still have multiple platforms to be able to advertise on, and people are gonna know about your services beforehand. Number 2 is the lead volume went way up. All right, so we scaled the ad campaign. The only way we were able to scale up the ad campaign is because we brought it in-house. When you talk to an agency and you say, hey, I would like to scale this up, the agencies that they were currently working with did not have the bandwidth or did not understand how to be able to run that many tests in a local area. All right, so on the 120 tests, we tested a whole bunch of different things. One of them was the platform. So we went from one platform to multiple platforms to reduce risk. We went down to creative as well. So instead of just pictures, we did videos, we did other types of creative, we did blogs, that kind of thing. And we also tested the type. We tested the type of, so one was outbound, one was inbound. We tested both of them. And we also tested out the angle as well. So for example, there's one product and let's say I sell really good hot dogs. You could say, these hot dogs are the best because the bun's the best. These hot dogs are the best because the actual hot dog's the best. These hot dogs are the best because it's the closest or fastest option that you have. So there's different angles that you can take when marketing the same product because it points on different pain points. Maybe it's that you're hungry. Maybe it's that you want something savory. Maybe it's something that you want something to eat after you work out. Probably not a hot dog, but for creative. And if you're ever stuck of like, hey, I don't actually know what to test, a great way to do it, Facebook ad libraries, every single ads library, all you can do is search up an ad library. You can go see what ads other people are running, look at them, and you can get inspiration from what angles other people are doing and how you can do it yourself. That's the other thing. And after testing all this stuff, there's another thing. After you bring it in-house, here's how much you care about your business, all the way to the top. Here's how much your employees care about your business, somewhere around there. An agency they don't even care. They're below here. They do not care about your business at all. Why is that? Well, because they have tons of clients and they don't need you. They're gonna move on. They have business. So this is really it. People who work for you, they actually have a job. They rely on the business succeeding, and you hopefully care about your business enough to want to see it succeed as well. So that's really why people don't really care about you much. And the more you care, the more it's going to turn out. Like you can't buy passion. You can pay for it. And of course, passionate people really do want to work hard, but passion will make up for so much other lack in skill or knowledge in life because your passion will take you very far. So that's important. All right. And also another thing, when you have one person focusing on someone, there's effort, or there's just expelling random effort, and there's focus. And I'll show you the difference between the two. Put a little green and profit. So effort is you're just kind of going everywhere and you're just putting effort forward. You're not actually doing any focus work, which is the difference between deep work and just doing something. Activity is not the same as actual focused effort. And so when you have an agency, they're focused on all these things that they have to do because they're running their own business. They have other clients, they have other stuff going on. When you bring it in-house and you have one person who actually knows what they're doing, you might pay the same or even more for a person in-house, but that person, hopefully, if you're a good employer, will stay with you for a really long time, and their focus will actually receive outsized returns instead of just having some agency who they're thinking about everything going on in their business instead of a team member who hopefully is just thinking about their one task and doing a really darn good job at that. Now that we're talking about focus, which actually segments perfect into the third point, and what we did most, what was really important, sales funnel optimization. Sales funnel go up, green line go up. All right, so sales funnel optimization. There's a couple of things that you look at when you're actually, so this is beyond marketing. So we've done the marketing, we've gotten all the leads, we've gotten all that thing. And I guess, why is this important? Why should you listen to me? For this specific customer, they went from having a higher cost per conversion, or cost per customer conversion, 3 times higher than industry average. By the time we installed this, their cost per conversion went from 3 times higher higher to 100-to-1 return on ad spend. So we went from a 12-to-1 return on ad spend to 100-to-1 return on ad spend. Almost a 10x improvement in return on ad spend, just because of the testing, mostly the testing that we did, and the systems and processes that we put in place to be able to capture their leads. Thankfully, they have a really good sales team. So because they had a sales team on the back end, they could actually capture and work these leads. They didn't have any issues there. They've already been tried and tested on that. So sales funnel optimization allowed us to measure two things. These things are connected here. So lead to booking rate and then booking to close rate. These are the things that we looked at to make sure that we had good control over. At first, they had a really poor lead to booking rate, which I think was part of their issue. They had a great booking to close rate. So I mean, that really wasn't the issue. The biggest issue was in the lead to booking rate was with the leads that they were getting. They just weren't very good because they were using an outsourced agency who wasn't able to see the whole picture of everything. And then not only that, we split tested what products they said. I said, all right, out of the last year worth of selling, what has been your most profitable products that you've had? And they said, well, this one thing we sold had a 2 times higher lifetime value that doubled what their average lifetime value was. And it cost us much less to fulfill on it. And I was like, well, why aren't you just selling more of those? And they were like, well, we don't market them as much. We just don't talk about them as much. So their lead generation may have been a 4 out of 5 or whatever, or, maybe an 8 out of 10. It was all right. They could do it. They had some leads coming in. They weren't really booking. I think the number one issue that we did when we looked at the whole sales funnel was their nurture. They had a huge drop off between what people understood when they clicked on the ad versus what they were being sold when they ended up going through the funnel. So in order to nurture all these people and to educate them before they even hopped on the call, I said, hey, what are the top 10 questions that you get asked when you actually hop on a sales call? And so they just answered like, well, these are the top 10 questions we did. We answered them over and over again in different ways throughout our content. And so by the time, before they even actually became a lead, because we posted all publicly beforehand, before they even lead, they were more educated than the leads that they were getting previous. Even the sales calls that they were getting, people would just hop on and they'd say, listen, I'm ready to go because I've been seeing this for a while now and I'm ready to go with you guys. That's how completely nurture can change it. And we'll get into the numbers at the end here that actually show how crazy having good nurture process for your leads will change your sales calls from having to convince and say the same thing over and over and over again. Instead of you make content on it, it works on your behalf, and then people hop on sales calls, they're either ready to buy. And then after we nurtured, we also did something on the back end, on the sales side, when we closed them, because they had a huge gap in what they should sell. Their close rate was good, but their take rate on upsells was not as good. I'll go with performance numbers. Performance hashtags? What do you mean? So performance numbers. The next thing is we looked at their upsell rate, and so their closing process was totally fine. They ended up closing a lot of the deals, but they had a lifetime value issue. And so there's 2 different ways that you can scale your business. You can get more customers or you can get more revenue per your customer. And so the one thing that we did in order to completely change this business is we said, out of all the sales calls that you had, what did you take previously and who bought what? So they said, well, there's this one product that we sell that everyone loved and it cost us the same amount of time to fulfill. They spent twice as much. And since we were already there, it saved us money on fulfillment. We actually spent less fulfilling on it in total. So it took them the same amount of time. They made more money on it. They said, well, why don't we just sell more of that? And so they went from a 5% take rate to a 90% take rate. They went from a 5% take rate to a 90% take rate on actually I need to make these better. There we go. So we looked at that and it's like, okay, so you have the most successful product and you're not selling it as much, why not? Partially because they didn't actually offer it to them. I was like, okay, so you didn't offer products that you know people would want to buy. So let's take this 5% to a 90% take rate just because we started offering and pushing that more than people did before. And it was all because of the nurture sequence that we had beforehand. And that was, once again, if you hire an agency, they don't care about nurture. All they care about, their metric is leads. So instead, we looked at the whole picture. We said, yes, not only are they not getting nurtured, they need to be nurtured by us as well. So the company started nurturing them. They had a higher show-up rate, they had a higher close rate, and then their take rate on their most profitable product went from 5% all the way up to 90%. And I just want to say this. If there's more consistency in your entire sales process, there's inherently more trust being built up. So what I mean by that is, if this is your entire sales process and you communicate once here and then once after they close, that's not very good. You want an equal amount of communication before and after. And so they were getting all of this marketing material beforehand. They also expected after the close, let's just say it's right here, after the close, they really should have gotten more information as well. So they were getting more information on what they were buying because they had literally nothing. They had no support after it was built other than like they just showed up and were like, all right, we're gonna start working on your project now. And so it was like, all right, you really need to start communicating with your client more. And I don't think anyone in the history of ever, and when we did any kind of business, when we've over communicated, I've never once said anything. And we've sent emails every single day. We've sent updates every single day saying, this is what we did today. This is what we did today. This is what we did. I've never once had anyone complain when we updated people daily versus just showing up and saying, we're going to show up now. So that really changed from like, we were communicating with them a lot on the front end and the back end as well. So now that you have all these leads, now that your sales calendar is filled, the next part would be fully bringing it in-house instead of us doing it for them at first. So we're saying, all right, who can actually do this for you? So then we worked on hiring. Let's talk about that. Number 5, bringing it in-house. All right, so what do we do? What do we do for bringing it in-house? The difficulty when you have some new hire who has no clue what they're doing, and really why ideally the whole point of agencies, an agency is actually more efficient at whatever you're hoping to accomplish than you are, more than likely. So what you do is if you bring someone in-house, you might have this. Let's just say 1, 2, 3. Let's just say that's months right there. You're having someone in-house, you don't know what they actually can, like it's gonna take them a while to figure it out unless they've actually done specifically the thing that you're looking for, in which case that person might be out of your budget or more expensive than you wanna pay. So what an agency does usually is this. They're really good at the start, but they're gonna plateau off really fast. So the good thing is if you combine these two things, you're gonna have the efficiency of an agency getting started. And by right here, you have all your KPIs built out because you're saying, this is what a successful campaign looks like. And now you bring someone in-house to be able to do it more efficiently. They have KPIs, they already have a successful campaign. Their job is to come in and already do it. So generally an agency can do it faster than someone building it in-house can do. When you just have a new job, you're gonna have a lot of time to figure things out, but usually agencies can do it faster. So you can combine these two things. That's how to effectively use agencies. And it's not just agencies ad infinitum. You use them for a little bit, get your KPIs, get your numbers, get your success out, understand what actually goes into a successful campaign. Then when you bring that person in, they're gonna be able to hit the ground running and be optimized instantly, or at least their learning time is gonna be greatly decreased. Ideally though, you only wanna hire someone who is extremely talented at what you're doing, and yeah, that kind of becomes tough. So how do you do that? There's one way. Their hiring honestly sucked. All they did was they kind of made maybe a post online about, hey, we're looking for this person to fill this role. That's it. We're just looking for someone essentially with a pulse who maybe has some sort of tech savviness to him. The way that you bring in high quality talent into your own business is the same exact way that you bring in really good leads into your business. You have to spend a lot of time and effort marketing to really good people because good people want to work at good places. And so you really have to make sure that you are on top of your game. What does your landing page look like? Do you have a hiring video? Do you have pictures? Do you have reviews from Glassdoor? What are the expectations that are set inside of the job listing so people know? These are all ideals. Not everyone's gonna be able to have everything. One of the things that we did for them was we totally revamped their employee marketing. And so their Indeed page, because that's where they got most of their applicants from, you can add reviews, you can add pictures, you can add testimonials, you can add about your company, you can add career paths. There's all these things that you should and you can add and you should be adding to your time to hire. This is also an important metric, time to hire. Most people want to get off the market as soon as possible. And so when you have someone who's really good and desirable who goes on the market, they're going to have a really short time to hire. So how many steps does your process have? When we started with them, their hiring process had 20 steps to it. 20 steps. They had to hop through all these hoops and they said, oh my goodness, but if they really want to work here, then they should be passionate and they should have to go through all these hoops. We took them from 20 steps hiring process to only 5 steps. They're much reduced interview. We made SOPs at all this because they didn't have it. They just kind of hopped on a call and they said, well, we kind of guess we like you, but you really need, and a great way to do this, ask AI. I'm hosting a job interview, I'm having a job interview. What are some important things that I should ask my candidate? That's what you can do. Now, sometimes also the best people for the job are not going to be looking for a job because they already have one. More than likely, if they're good, they're already going to have a job. So what you do instead is I would go get LinkedIn and I would message people. I'd go get LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and I would find the specific people who you're looking for, and I'd message them, hey, I see you're really doing a good job at this role. Do you know anyone else? We're hiring for this role. They actually might be interested in that job as well. But most importantly, when you're bringing someone in-house, make sure that they have experience doing exactly the thing that you want them to, because if they don't have experience, you can't expect them to do it again. Experience is more important than potential later on. And also, if you don't absolutely love the person that you're interested in hiring, don't do it. It is an awful, awful idea. And what happens when you hire someone who you kind of guess, or you have a gut feeling that maybe is not the best choice, usually you'll end up regretting it. I remember we ended up hiring someone who we really needed someone for the role badly. And this guy came on and he worked for a while. Then he started just showing up late. Over about 2-month period, his activity metrics totally tanked, and it was about 10% of what it was. And so we had a conversation very quickly, and within 2 weeks he was gone after we looked at that, because he just couldn't get the metrics back up because he didn't really want to work anymore. So that was the tough thing. But when I was originally hiring this guy, it's like, we just need someone really badly. And I just didn't, there's like something off about it, but I was like, we just need someone. He seems like a really great candidate. He has great experience. He has great work ethic. He'll be able to come in and crush it as well. I was wrong. I make mistakes. But I learned from that mistake, which is the important part. So even, all right, let's say you spent all this time and effort, marketing to someone who bring on this really great employee, you have an amazing interview, you have all this stuff, and then all of a sudden, as soon as they drop off, you hire them, and then this is how many expectations you set with them. 0. You don't know what the role is. You don't know what the KPIs are. You don't know anything about the actual role itself. So by the time they get hired, you just throw them in, you're like, all right, figure it out. That's also another way, which leads us to our next point, which would be cultural trainings and focus. You need to set good expectations after you hire someone. Make sure that you have good expectations and KPIs. Make sure you have good expectations and numbers after they've been hired, so that you can meet with them. And the thing about numbers is numbers don't lie. You can't just say, I feel like I did pretty good this week. I feel like I did a good job. You actually need numbers to be able to track and expectations, so that even after they come on to the job, they have those expectations that they're able to meet and understand, so that they can continue to have a good performance on their job. So speaking of performance and nurturing good employees, the daily meetings. Number 6 is culture. So this is one of the important things. So even if we come in, we generate all these leads, and then we just leave them and say, all right, have fun, good luck closing them. Even after we bring it in-house, even after we've already hired all the people, now, how do you actually nurture these team members? Now, if you know anything about sales teams, there tends to be some churn in front-end sales teams. So the way that you do that, the way that we did that specifically with the marketing team, is we set up daily meetings with the team so that everyone was communicating and everyone was on the same page. It doesn't have to be a whole lot. It can be 15 minutes in the morning to make sure that everyone's on track and no one has any questions. It can be longer, it can be shorter, whatever, or it could be, roll call if you're with the team. It can be role play if you're with the team. And then most importantly, one of them is weekly one-on-ones as well, one up and one down. So what I mean by that is you meet with your manager and you meet with someone under you, if you have anyone who's under you as well, who's reporting to you. And you meet with them for no longer than an hour. And that really allows you to have the one-on-one attention and culture nurture process. The weekly one-on-ones where you go over one up, one down, you go over your KPIs, your numbers, how things are doing, any questions that you may have. Hopefully you're comfortable with it to ask them. Finally, communication with marketing and sales was aligned. So instead of just having some agency that's not communicating with you at all, very little, if at all, with sales. And so now you're able to have that communication. Ideally, marketing and sales gets along really well, instead of just saying, hey, the sales team can't close the leads that we're sending them. That's what the marketing team can say sometimes. Or marketing says, hey, marketing keeps giving us terrible leads, that's why we can't close. Whatever it may be, now there's more communication because you're actually meeting frequently and often, and hopefully you are in alignment with that. Having a mission statement and core values allows you to be in total alignment with the whole team, to be together, rowing in the same boat, in the same direction, rather than everyone figuring out where they're gonna go and going off in different directions, which, the focus versus just effort. Core values allows you to be completely aligned, so that when you deal with problems, whether it be marketing, sales, fulfillment, whatever it may be, that you're aligned in how you're dealing with those problems. And those core values really defines, and the mission statement defines how you interact with team members, customers, whoever it may be. All right, well, that's all I got for that one. So that is how we were able to not only bring in a team, just to recap, not only do we do the marketing for them at first, we figured out a positive campaign, we did more tests, we brought it in-house, we hired the people and we screened the people. Now we're working on retaining them. Now, let's talk about what the numbers actually look like, because the numbers are important. Numbers are how you make money. Culture, number 7. The numbers, Mason, what do they mean? All right, so they were at $2 million, which is about $150,000 every single month. They were getting 50 leads per month in on average with a 30% lead to booking rate. And then which meant they had about 15 discovery calls. And out of those 15 discovery calls, only 60% went to sales. And then out of those 10 sales calls, they had a 10% closing rate per month. $2 million per year, which is about $150,000 a month. And they were getting in 50 leads every single month with about a 30% lead to booking rate to discovery call. And out of those 15 discovery calls they had about, on average, 60% of those led to sales calls, which meant they only had 10 sales calls per month. And they had about a 10% closing rate on the ones that they did end up pitching, which meant they only got 2 sales per month. So all that, and we brought them to 80 leads with a 50% booking rate. Some of them were inbound, some of them were outbound. This is for all of them put together. 40 discovery calls, which led to 60%. 60% they went from discovery call to sales call to a 14 sales calls and a 50% close rate, which is much better. Close rate, which led to 7. Well, let's do the math. 7 times average. All right, so $120,000, $840,000. Perfect. Which equals, all right, so the numbers, what do they mean? They went from $2 million at $150,000 a month on average. They got 50 leads in at a 30% booking rate roughly, 50%, 15 discovery calls, and 60% went from a discovery call to a sales call. Out of those 10 sales calls, they only closed 10% of them because it was extremely high ticket. And with that 10% close rate, it means they got about 2 sales per month. 80 leads every single month in from the new campaign, 50% booking rate, 40 discovery calls, which led to 60% conversion rate, which is the same as before, but their sales calls, they had a 50% close rate on it because we nurtured the crap out of them beforehand, and they got 7 closes out of that. And since they were selling the thing that was twice as expensive, they went from marketing a product that was half as much margins to almost twice as much profit margins and twice as much on the top line as well. So they went from $60,000 on average to $120,000 was their average ticket price, and they got 7 of those per month roughly, which was within 120 days. They built an $840,000 per month business, and times 12 equals $10 million every single year. And yeah, man, I hope that was worth it. I hope that people actually get value out of this. That's the most important part. But yeah, that's exactly how we were able to build a $10 million business in 120 days just by building an in-house marketing team and using agencies previously. And if you want to know, and if you want to break down what the numbers are on the actual sales team, I made a video on that right here, which talks about the numbers for the sales team. Also, if you would like an in-house marketing team, click the button below. You can actually get in contact with me and I will see you then. Fun fact, this cost $14 in paper to make. So these are $2 per sheet. Plus import taxes, so actually it might be a little bit more than $2 per sheet.